Here we are. Okay. Okay, I don't think we'll need much of the terminal this session just here. Okay, so the first session we have is on using the safe. We actually already saw quite a lot of this. I think I went into it in more detail than usual yesterday. And of course, Julian was showing some of the functionality through his screen share. In any case, let's get going. So the safe, you'll have all gone through it in the process of getting your ARCHER2 account set up. So you'll have some awareness, at least, and possibly a lot, of its functionality. We're going to go through some of the management tools it gives you to help you work on ARCHER2. I'll probably help to demonstrate some bits through this as well. Okay, so we've seen the safe, we've logged into it, you'll have got your accounts there. So you'll have seen how it enables you to get your account set up, to request it in the first place from your project PI, to then get your initial login password, to add your SSH public keys to it. But as it also lets you record your research output. So whenever you get something published that's been made possible through use of ARCHER2, you can record it there. This is very helpful for reasons we'll see in a minute. You can look at your historical use of the ARCHER2 service. So you can look at the jobs you've run in the past. You can see which jobs were run when, what resources they used, their raw usage and actual charged cost. I might demonstrate that. I think that could be useful. I think that's actually a really handy tool to have. So I might demonstrate that. And if you happen to be the leader or manager of a project, you also get extra resources to help manage the project. So you get extra tools to help manage your project's resource. We spoke a little about managing disk quota. If the project managers create project subgroups, subprojects, which they then add people to make sure that certain groups of people on the project have certain disk quota. They will also do the same to make sure that certain groups of people within the project have compute resources made available to them. And linked here, I'll actually show you this. So there's a separate documentation website specifically for the safe, which you can get to if you follow that link there, which provides some extra information that isn't on the ARCHER2 website. And that's because this applies to everyone who uses the safe. There are several groups, several machines are run through the safe. If you're a Cirrus user, for example, you'll also be using the safe. And this applies to everyone who uses the safe, not just ARCHER2 users. So as we saw yesterday, with ARCHER2, users will have at least 2 accounts. And that really is at least 2, a minimum of 2. You'll have your safe account and then any number of ARCHER2 login accounts, sometimes called machine accounts, as it says here. So whenever you go there, you might have multiple accounts under multiple projects. They'll all be visible on the safe. And as I say, if you have any machine accounts on other systems which we provide, like Cirrus, you'll also see those listed. So yes, tier 2 resources. There are other systems at ECSC which are also administered via the safe, and you can have all of these. You can manage all of these with the one safe account. Sometimes I have known of people who have created new safe accounts every time they needed a new login account. That isn't necessary. You don't need to do that. Thankfully, there's one less login to remember or to store in your password manager. So yeah, so we can't go through everything. Again, we've only got a finite amount of time here. We've only got, what is it, half an hour, I think, scheduled on this session, I believe. Yes, so can't go through everything, but if you are interested in some of the more in-depth functionality, that user guide linked just up above could be really helpful for you. So the first things are related to the safe account itself. I've got two things noted here. Some people will like to use their institutional single sign-on to log in rather than to use a safe password and email address. So what you would do to do that is you would log into the safe as normal, but then you can go to your details, register institutional ID. So I think I've got my safe open here, and you would just go, oops, and do that. Register identities, register institutional ID. Click here, and well, I have the University of Edinburgh set up. You might obviously be choosing something very different. So you can add that identity, and then when you come to log in, you can do so using that SSO. Changing the email notification preferences is actually, I actually want to cover this. Every so often, emails will go out. There's a weekly email that goes out to all users of ARCHER2. If you use the other services, you'll also be receiving communication every so often. And these emails will just continue the bits of news that are thought to be of interest for the users. It will cover details on upcoming maintenance, upcoming training. You possibly heard about this course through those emails. Anything which should be useful to users of the service. If anything goes wrong, say something happens and the system goes down, it would be likely that an email would be sent out to everyone then to say the system's down. It isn't just you who can't log in, to provide information on what's happening, and to hopefully, if possible, provide information on when that problem might be resolved and you can get logged in and back to work. So there are two things to note here, and I'll show you both of them. Oops, sorry, that's the safe documentation. So one thing to do is, is to go to your details and then update email settings. And you can then choose which types of email you want to receive. I've just ticked everything here. Most of these, you won't find yourself being spammed endlessly if you tick everything. I think it's worthwhile just signing up for everything just in case, everything that's available. Something that I think people are sometimes unaware of, and I think, as I understand it, it's being changed. When you sign up for the safe, there's a field here, opt out of user emails. Sometimes people tick this, and it looks like it maybe should be ticked. If you tick this, you won't receive any emails at all. So I'd really recommend making sure that you stay aware of what's happening on ARCHER2, particularly in the case that the system goes down and you might be left wondering what's happening. I would recommend making sure that this box here is not ticked, to make sure that you do get emails, because if you tick this box, then any other email settings will be suppressed and you won't receive them. So I think if you want to make sure that you stay aware of what's happening, that's quite important. There are other ways, actually. I mean, following on from that, something else you can do. If you're wondering what the status of the system is, you can always go to the ARCHER2 website, and there's a link up here, service status. You can click on that, and you get some information on the load on the system that's kept up to date. You can see it's already gone past noon today. And this is basically plotting the output from sinfo as a function of time. But this is all the important stuff. So if you find yourself wondering what's happening, if you can't log in, this is where you should be able to find out what's going on. So we noted yesterday that the modules were loading a little slowly, and here's a service alert mentioning that. So you can always come on here and take a look at what's happening, and this will give you some information if you suspect something isn't quite right on the system. Okay, so that was a little brief sidetrack from the safe to go to the ARCHER2 website. Of course, then, aside from just your general safe account settings, you can also manage your accounts themselves. So when you go to take a look at your ARCHER2 login accounts, so this can be your TA062 account or any other project account, you go to it, you go to that page that we saw yesterday, and there's a good amount of information provided there, as well as the buttons at the bottom which we saw, which give you that extra functionality to let you do things like reset your password, get access to licensed software, add extra SSH keys. I'll show you this quickly as well, may as well. So if I go to the page for my account under this project, that's TA062. So here's everything for my account here. So for me, this shows me my username, when I created the account, when I last logged in or last performed a run. I think this updates every day, this one. Then it provides some useful information. So we spoke a little about the quotas yesterday. What I didn't mention so much was this line here. So this box here shows us all the resources that we have under the TA062 project. These down here probably make sense to you straight away. This is telling us what quota and usage we have on the home and work file systems. So in both cases, we're using 1 GB. I get the feeling this is rounded up because I don't think we've produced that much data even. But we have a 10 GB quota on home and 100 on work. And remember, as I said yesterday, that's shared across all users under TA062. So all of us here who have accounts in this project, we're all sharing this. If one of us creates a file with 99 GB on work, then all of us will see the usage here go up to 100. We'll hit the quota, and none of us will be able to do anything. So it's important that when we're in these projects, we keep an eye on our disk usage so we don't stop either ourselves or anyone else in the project being able to do things. But the thing which we haven't really seen so much is this next line, resource pool ARCHER2. Sure, that's just saying that our resources are on the ARCHER2 system. And then we've got this bit here, remaining budget 18.7 CUs. So this means that whenever we run a job through Slurm and charge it against TA062 with that option to SBatch, remember, -- account equals TA062. That means that when that job completes, Slurm will calculate how many resources that actually cost, and that will come through and be subtracted from our budget here on the safe. So whether any of you or I run a job under TA062, when that completes, we'll see that remaining budget there deprecate. So at the moment, we've got 18.7 CUs. I believe we started out with 20, so we've used not very much of that at all. Remember, 1 CU is 1 node hour, so we've used 1.3 node hours essentially. That makes sense. We've been running lots of little jobs, but nothing probably that took more than a minute at any time. So yeah, so we've used about 1.3 node hours, which in ARCHER2 speak is, 1.3 node hours, which in ARCHER2 speak is 1.3 CUs. I believe, yeah. Oops, wrong page again. Down here are these buttons. When Julian was showing this yesterday, they were orange. If you remember, I've got a different theme set up. I can't actually remember how to do that. Somewhere on here, I changed it to look more like the old version of the safe. But we saw some of these: request access to package. If you want access to whatever, you just click on that, choose the package you want. PyChem shell, let's say, select, provide your license details, and then submit. And assuming that you've provided enough details, that'll be checked very quickly with whoever is responsible for licensing on PyChem shell. Whenever they get back to us, we can then activate your access to that. Add credential, delete credential. We spoke about these. Lets you add extra SSH keys if you want to log in from other machines. If you forget your password, remember you can click this button. You'll probably then receive in a few minutes an email telling you that it's been reset. This is an automated process. It creates a ticket on the back end that goes through and changes that. Once you receive the email telling you that your password to ARCHER2 has been reset, you can come back here. You then click on View Login Account Password and grab your password from here. Remember that once you change it, this doesn't change to match it. So I can show you this because this isn't actually my password anymore. The moment that you log in and change your password, which you'll always be asked to do the first time that you use one from here, then that's your new password, and you'll be the only person who knows it. Finally, I think the only thing really here that is useful, otherwise useful, is request group budget. So sometimes, I've only done this a couple of times myself with some other work I'm involved in. Sometimes you might have an account under one project, and for whatever reason, you may be granted resources through another project. So say we're here in TA062, say for some unknown reason, we're getting resources from TA061, another project where we don't have accounts. What might happen would be that the people who manage TA061 would create something called a guest budget, and they can put some number of CUs into that. And then what we can do from our TA062 accounts is we can go to request group budget, ask for access to that budget. They would then approve it, and then we would be able to use those resources from the other project with our accounts on this project. I don't think that's done very commonly because, of course, you need some kind of situation where someone working in some project would be, legitimately entitled to resources from another project, which it does happen, but I don't think it's super common. But it may be worth being aware that this exists for that reason, and that doing that is possible if you ever do find yourselves in that situation. Finally, something I'll mention here is user reports at the bottom. So these links which you'll find there lets you see what you've been doing with this account on ARCHER2 in the past. In particular, I'll show you the user job report quickly. So if you just click on the link, you get taken to a page here, and you can ask essentially to be told about jobs that you ran within some period on some projects. So I'm just going to say, show me everything that I ran under this project over some period. So I'll just say since the start of April for one block of 1 month. I'll just say show me everything. And then you can choose to get the output in various forms. So I'll just go for preview to start with. And it's showing me, I think again, this updates daily. So this is showing me all of the jobs which I ran yesterday when I was demonstrating various bits to you all. If I were to run this tomorrow, I'd then see the jobs which I ran during the GDB for HPC and CRAPAT sessions this morning as well. But of course, you can also get it in other formats. CSV might be helpful. Just click and then I've just downloaded it. Maybe you want to do something with that CSV file, process it in Python, or even just dump it into Excel to do whatever you need to do. The actual information that you get here, of course, you can see the job name, job ID, what budget it was charged to when it was submitted, started, ended. I think probably the most interesting bits here are where you can see what your jobs were actually charged. So you can see my jobs here were charged very little because they used 2 nodes, one used 1 node. They ran for 38 seconds, 1 minute, 54 seconds. These were hardly massive tasks, massive jobs. So you can see here, charged usage, CUs, raw usage, CUs. So the raw usage is what they actually, what resources were actually used to run them. Charged usage is what they were actually charged, what was actually subtracted from the budget, TA062. The reason that those are 2 different columns and that they aren't just 1 column is because not all jobs are charged. I mentioned earlier on that serial jobs aren't charged. So if you run anything on the data analysis nodes, those jobs aren't charged. There is also a low priority QoS, which means that those jobs will have a low priority. They will only run if they don't block anything else from running, which actually is fairly easy to get going at the moment. I've been working with some people who've been using that quite often, and they've found that things still start fairly quickly on the low priority QoS. And if you run with the low priority QoS, the advantage, the sort of payoff for running with a low priority that will only run if it doesn't stop anything else, is that those jobs are also free to run. So for all those jobs, you will see the raw usage here. You'll see how much, how many resources were actually required to run them, but the charged usage will all be 0 because they were free to run. Okay. If you are a project manager, I won't show this, but if you are a project manager in any capacity as well, then you'll be able to mouse over the projects button here at the top, and then you'll be able to click on projects, and you'll be able to do extra things. You'll be able to monitor which users in the project are using disk space. You'll be able to monitor the job usage for all users on the project. So who's using up the CUs, I guess. And of course, you'll be able to do everything I was mentioning earlier about creating sub-projects, moving people into sub-projects, and then giving them resources that they can use through those sub-projects. Yeah, I mentioned earlier recording research outputs. So whenever you do produce something which gets a DOI, you can add that into the safe, which helps us essentially report to the people who fund ARCHER2, which helps to provide the case for it essentially. It's paid for by UKRI ultimately. So under your details, publications, you can now here say under some project, so I'll just pick TA062 again. You can add extra things here, and that way it helps build the case essentially. It helps build up statistics on how useful ARCHER2 actually is, which means that it improves the case for running services like ARCHER2. It improves the case for in however many years' time, when ARCHER2 is looking a bit old and creaky, there may be being, say, an ARCHER3 or whatever else the service may be called. So this just helps us keep the case up, say to the people, in government who can actually fund these, say to them, this is worthwhile, we should be doing this, we should be providing this service because it's helping real scientists get real data. It's helping real work happen, and it's getting results. Oh, I've kind of spoken about reporting the use of the service. Yes, so you can also get historical use that way if you go to, oops, oh, which one is it? Service information and then reports. You can again grab reports from here. Depending on what you do in terms of your position within projects, you may do things. You may find yourself receiving reports emailed to you every month and the like. Anyway, and you can check things like if you're a project manager, you can check if your project's resource usage is on track with what had been predicted and the like. Okay, hopefully that was useful for just understanding the safe. It is a powerful tool to have to help people manage their accounts and to help project managers manage people working on ARCHER2. If anyone has any questions, please chime in. Otherwise, I will move on to our next section. Again, this is fairly light material, I guess. So this is sort of about what you can do after today, I guess. What to do if you need more help, what to do if you want training, where to find documentation. I think training I would say is important. Oh, and of course getting access. Oh, and the ECSC could be of this could be of interest to you all as developers. So to get through this, let's start off by just mentioning the service desk. Some of you may have been in touch with them if you have accounts in the system at the moment. Perhaps you've run into issues. The service desk is run on all weekdays that aren't holidays. So for example, last Friday and this Monday were holidays, but almost all weekdays it's open, running from 8 in the morning to 6 in the evening. And you can get in touch at that email address there, or you can actually submit queries through the safe as well. So if you're having any issues, and you can get in touch, and help will be available from whoever is there to help fix your problems. They can range anywhere from issues getting logged in, if say SSH keys are causing problems, and unfortunately they do quite often, through to if you're having trouble building code or want help profiling code. You can again get in touch there. Depending on what your type of query is, you'll be put in touch with the right people to help you get the issue solved. And the CSC service does also offer a callback service. So if you want, you can get in touch and say, if you would prefer to discuss the issue face to face, so to speak, you can ask for that, and they will get back in touch to arrange a time to set up a probably Microsoft Teams call. And if your issue is something that you would just rather discuss like that, or just is complex enough that talking about it rather than writing a long email about it would be easier, you can do that. The documentation, we've been looking at it sporadically over these 2 days, but there are several sections to it. Let's take a quick look at it, because I think I have it open. Yes. Yes, so we have some quick start sections. To be honest, the sort of things that we've been doing today and yesterday, this is probably not going to be very helpful for you anymore. But if you have any colleagues who are looking to get started on ARCHER2, it may be worthwhile reminding them that quick start sections do exist. There are 2, one for users, one for developers. As I kind of said yesterday, the users, as I'll call them here, are people who are mainly going to be looking to just get logged on and then start sending off jobs to run. People who won't be looking to compile, debug profile codes, whereas the quick start for developers will actually provide some information on the programming environment. All of that's then covered in more detail in the user and best practice guide. You can see we've got the sections here, everywhere from connecting to the hardware and then down to the development environment, debugging and profiling, again, using Python is covered here. The known issues, this is actually worth keeping track of, I think. So we are always becoming aware of issues with the system and the software. I think it's a fact of life that nothing is ever going to be perfect. So as we do find issues, so you can see here the top one, there's a memory leak in libfabric, which is one of the 2 MPI communications layers available on ARCHER2. It causes a memory leak, and of course, if enough memory does leak, then you end up with an out of memory error, and exporting this environment variable can help prevent that, and more down below. So it's worth being aware of these issues on here, and if you do run into any problems, maybe quickly checking that the problem you're experiencing isn't documented here, because it may also come with either a fix or a workaround. Of course, if it doesn't, that would then be when you would maybe think about getting in touch with the service desk to see if anything else can be done. Frequently asked questions are there, with again some suggestions if it's anything that might be causing a problem for you. And then really it's the sections on using the different software. So the different simulation packages that we have installed, things like CP2K and the Unified Model NWChem. Then the libraries that are available, this includes libsci from HP Cray. Remember that this is actually really easy to use because the compiler wrappers just link it in anyway. as well as some of the packages that have also been installed by the CSC service at EPCC. And then things like the analysis tools, PowerView, R, Visordata, crystals installed, and more. So this is all there. It's a good first stop if you want to know more. And if you find that it isn't enough, that's when I would say get in touch with the service desk. They'll be able to help you, or they'll put you in touch with the people who can help you. As for training, well, we spoke a little about training. There was that upcoming course on Scholastica, which Kevin linked to earlier. We offer several different types of courses. So we offer 2 different introduction to ARCHER2 courses. This is, of course, one of them. The other one is for package users. So again, the people who just want to log on and start running simulations, and not really people who want to start developing, compiling code. But we also offer courses on using various packages. So those lists of packages which you saw we had, which we had documentation on, we offer courses on using those on ARCHER2. So next week, for example, there's a course being run on using Code Saturn, which is an engineering code, computational fluid dynamics code, using that on ARCHER2. That's running on, I think, Wednesday and Thursday. We also offer carpentry courses are available, help you improve software data analysis skills. There's also an HPC carpentry course being run now. There's a course being run on using containers. That's something I haven't really talked about, but I think it's becoming of more interest to people because we do have Singularity installed on ARCHER2. So if you've ever used Docker, say, you can use containers with Singularity in a similar way. You can write containers. You can create containers specifically for Singularity, which will run on ARCHER2 and allow you to make use of the Cray MPICH libraries to run in parallel across multiple nodes. This course provides information. Well, I think it starts out on using Docker and then builds up to using Singularity on ARCHER2. And you can always check these, check the schedule. I'll open that on the ARCHER2 website. Actually, I'll start from the beginning. So ARCHER2, you've probably seen this when you signed up for this course. You can take a look at the upcoming training here. So things which are probably of interest to all of you would be things like, let's see, Introduction to Modern Fortran could be interesting. That's running next week, isn't it? There's the Code Saturn course. Of course, Performance Analysis Workshop with Scholastica, the one Kevin linked to earlier. This could definitely be useful if you're interested in learning how to profile through a course. This will help show you how to do that with Scholastica on ARCHER2. I'm going to talk about getting access to ARCHER2. So, of course, one way to get access for at least a little while is to join a course like this. But if you want more permanent access, I say more permanent, every project has an end date. If you want longer term access with more resources to use, there are a good few routes to use to get access. One of them is via the ARCHER2 driving test. This is fairly new. It only started, I think, in January or February. It's a short quiz about essentially using and how to use ARCHER2. But once you complete and pass it, gives UK-based researchers the ability to apply, get a small amount of ARCHER2 time, which you can use for essentially whatever your research requires. An obvious use case here would be to do this to just get some small number of resources, which you can then use to start benchmarking your code. Well, to get it ported in the first place, then start benchmarking, and then you have benchmarking data available for ARCHER2. That's handy because the other access routes, which can potentially grant you many more resources, part of the application processes for these routes will generally require you to provide benchmarking information. So you can get access through scientific consortia if your work lies in the remits of one of them. There's pump priming access, which again gives fairly small amounts of time, but again lets you get scaling information. Research grants, if you're applying, can get you many more, much larger quantities of resources. And there's an access to HPC call that takes place every so often. If you apply through these, you'll have to provide, you'll have to take part in a technical assessment, which means provide information on what your code is, what it does, how well it scales, what sort of jobs will you be running, so that it can be determined whether the work you're proposing is suitable for ARCHER2. But if you're just looking to get some time to actually do that benchmarking so that you can prove that your code is suitable to run on ARCHER2 at the scale that you are talking about, an easy way to do that, again, would be something like ARCHER2 drive and test or the pump priming route. But all of these, again, are detailed on the ARCHER2 access page. Many more details here, as well as links to the forms needed to go through that application process. Okay. The ECSC, this is actually something which may be of interest to some of you or perhaps others in your research groups. So the ECSC is a program, so that stands for Embedded Computational Science and Engineering. It provides funding to groups who want to essentially do work of some sort on their codes. It gives you, or else a research software engineer, who can be someone in your institution, or you can ask for someone from EPCC to take your code. Perhaps you want to increase its functionality, help it do things it couldn't do before. Perhaps you want to improve its performance or help it scale further than it's currently capable. That potentially needs a lot of time and effort from someone. So the ECSC can help provide funding for someone to do that work. The calls open fairly often. Let's take a look at when the next one is. Okay, so the 7th call is open. Is actually open as of yesterday. The deadline for technical evaluations. Again, you have to provide a technical evaluation so that it can be determined whether the code you want to work on is suitable for ARCHER2. I guess particularly ARCHER2, but generally for HPC. And then the final deadline for a proposal, which will include that technical evaluation, is on the 14th of June. So if any of you do have a code and you really want to have either you yourself or someone in your group or someone at EPCC really sit down and spend a good few months, up to a year, potentially working on this, improving it in some way, this could be something that you're interested in, or maybe others at your institutions who are looking into this. Okay, and finally, this kind of feeds back a little into what I was saying on previous previous section about helping to keep up the case for funding HPC, to make sure that people know it's worthwhile to put money into keeping these services up, to buying, to starting new services when the time is right. It's good to properly acknowledge what work has been made possible by ARCHER2 here. So if you do end up getting something published, it's very, very helpful if you could put this in just a little statement to let it be known, and also to tag output with the ARCHER2 keywords if possible. And that lets people know that the money that was put into ARCHER2 to start it, to keep it running, has helped you get that research done. Okay, and with that, a little ahead of schedule actually. It's a change from yesterday, isn't it? We've reached the afternoon break. So if anyone has any questions, again, please ask. After this, we'll be moving on to the bootstrapping session, which I guess I can talk about now since we are a little ahead of schedule. So hopefully at this point, you're able to get going in developing whatever your code is on ARCHER2. You should be able to log in. You should be able to use the development environment, run jobs with your application, and then, if necessary, try to debug them with GDB for HPC, or else profile them with CRAPAT. So this next session that we'll be going into after the break is much more open form. So we have a few options to you. One is to essentially, as I say, if you have code, you can bring your own code, copy it onto ARCHER2, SCP or rsync it onto ARCHER2, try building it, try running it, and if you want to, if you have any problems with doing so, we are here to help. If you can do that with no issues, and you want to try, say, profiling it, you can absolutely give that a go. We're here to help with that as well. If you would rather, there's also an exercise here to download an input file for GROMACS. GROMACS is a world-leading biomolecular modeling package. It's installed centrally on ARCHER2. So if I just do, if I just do module avail GROMACS, you'll see, I think we have a couple of installations. Yes. So you can download an input file for it, try writing a job script. You can use the template job scripts on the ARCHER2 documentation website as a starting point, and then try running some benchmarking with that. GROMACS handily reports how fast it runs at the end of its standard output in nanoseconds per day. Higher is better, means it's moved through more simulation time per unit rule time. And so you can try running it in pure MPI. You can also introduce threading with OpenMP and try and see what you think would be the best number of nodes, tasks, threads to run on. Or if you just have any questions or want anything demonstrated again, I can absolutely run through that. Finally, if you think you're happy with everything so far and you would rather just leave and get on with something else, you're also, of course, very welcome to do so I hope that you've enjoyed the course and found it useful. And again, if you do so, please do provide feedback if you have anything to say once you get the email asking for that. Okay, so I guess in that case, what we'll do then, just for now, is we'll go on to our 15-minute break. Anyone who does want us to stick around and try any of these bootstrapping tasks, and we'll come back for that in 15 minutes, which will be, what will that be, 20 to 3. Anyone, if anyone does leave, thanks for coming along. Hope you enjoyed it. Okay, otherwise I'll see you in 15 minutes. Hi, David. Okay, so I'm going to take a look at this now because that's quite interesting. So part B, okay, let me get to that part. Submitting jobs, where is it? Okay, so 2-task job with 1 task per socket. Where was that section? It was just here, wasn't it? 2 tasks per node, 1 per socket. Okay, so this was the suggestion. So I'm going to move to my work directory. And so you've got it running on cores 0 and 16. You are right, 0 and 64 is what we want. So that's an interesting turn of events, I'll put it. Let's go and try this. So no, that shouldn't matter. Slurm's thankfully intelligent enough. Well, it might help in making it easier for us to pass the output of xt high. But Slurm's generally intelligent enough with the per node, per socket type syntax to get things right. So let's try this. So we want 8 nodes. Let's just go exactly as the question asks. 8 nodes, 2 tasks per node, and n tasks per socket equals 1. Per socket. I again cannot type. N tasks per socket equals 1. So this should really be placing, as you say, task 0 on core 0 and task 1 on core 64, at least on the first node. So let's take a look. So I guess you've already seen this output. I should have done that in the reservation, really, shouldn't I? That would have run. Let me just fix that in the reservation script as well. So nodes 8, n tasks per node 2. We'll leave out the CPUs per task. You could probably use CPUs per task to do this as well. There are often multiple ways to get the same results with Slurm. Sometimes there are what look like multiple ways to get the same result, but for very obscure reasons, some of them don't work. That's one of the issues with Slurm, I think. It's very, very powerful. It allows you to add lots of plugins to change the way it works, many different ways. But part of the issue is that sometimes the Slurm documentation isn't very helpful sometimes. I think that's right, isn't it? 8 nodes, 2 tasks per node, and n tasks per socket equals 1. Yeah, the core binding options, sometimes you find you can get different results just by whether you put them in S batch or after the S runs. It can be very confusing. Okay, so there's the result from that one. So I guess this is what you found when you tried. Oh yes, affinity 16. Definitely not what is expected. No, not just you. Yeah, that's definitely slightly unusual. Let's try. So another way I would try this, would actually be to use CPUs per task, and I would set this to 64. So you would use CPU bind map CPU 064. It is, but it does work as well. So if you let me see how I can show you. So maybe you've seen already. Oh, I've lost it in the ARCHER2 documentation. In the section on running jobs. Where is it? So it's in the section for this, I think. Yes. So if you want to run, so Slurm lets you do this, and again, perhaps you've seen this, please say if you have done. If you want to run multiple subjobs, so say if you want to reserve, in this example, it's if you reserve one node and you want to run 128 serial tasks, one on each core, then again we use CPU bind to do that, and we do that with a mask rather than a mapping. So that's just literally it's a hex mask that says that binds the current S run to the right cores. So in this case, it's just going to mask everything except one CPU, and we just use this genmask CPU script, which is always available on the command line to do that. So I mean, yeah, it is a little artificial. It's certainly not as easy as just choosing things at the top of your choosing S batch options, but sometimes I think if it does the job, then may as well do it. So this is another way I would think of doing it. Let's see what happens if I run that. Sometimes, again, this is just experimentation, which is why using something like XT high or else getting verbose options elsewhere to tell you what your mapping to cores is can be helpful. Requested reservations and that. That's because I haven't changed it to today's reservation. Okay. Shouldn't take long to run. Completing. Okay. Okay, so let's take a look at that output. I always go to more even when I want to use less. Okay, so that's not quite. This would probably work perfectly fine, but it's not quite as nice as just having it pinned to the one core. I'm quite. Oops, didn't want to do that. I'm quite surprised that didn't work. I'm guessing something has changed in the Slurm settings since the last time I did this, but that was only in late January, I think. I'm trying to think if any work's been done. No, something was changed in Slurm actually in February, I think. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that would have changed this. Let me do a little digging. I'm just going to do a little digging here, as I want to find out what's happening because this is quite surprising. I'm still here if you want to do anything else. That's no problem at all. Hi again. So I've just done some digging, and there was some work done on the Slurm configuration around the 29th, 30th of March, and it looks like some of the things that may have been affected are, again, as the hint and distribution options. I want to try doing this. I'm going to go back to this. Tasks per socket equals 1 rather than the CPUs per task. This should have been fine, I think. There's no problem. We've still got one task on each of our sockets. We're just not specifying particularly which of the cores on those sockets each of the tasks is going to use. So it would work fine. It's just not as nice as saying the first task is on core 0 and the second is on core 64. So I want to see if I can get this working. I think using hint no multithread and block here may have something to do with it. So I'm going to try. As bizarre as this sounds, apparently this was an option. This was a problem someone found after this change was made to Slurm. I think it was just general back-end changes, so nothing that should have been visible. Disabling block, I've made a typo there, may also change things. Let me fix that typo, then I'll try running it.
Might as well speak because there's no one else left in the call but us two.
No, listen, is there?
Did you want hint equals multi-thread there, no multi-thread?
Oh, did I do that?
Yeah,
Oh, yes, I did.
It's all right.
Well spotted. No multi-thread. I'm very prone to making silly mistakes like that when writing things out on the fly. Okay, so I want to see what that does. How is the porting going with your code? This messy code, I think you said it was, or
I haven't.
yucky code.
Yeah, it's a thing that it's a piece of Python actually. Uses
right.
MPI for PY and H5PY and also FFTW. And I managed to get it working, but I always felt Frankenstein-y. So I thought today I'd get it working better. I think I may have to do some stuff because I know this is a known issue with FFTW libraries. I might do that. I just thought it'd be interesting to get it working because I did get it working about 3 months ago, then haven't looked at it again, and I was curious to see whether it still works. So I could do that today and see if we can make the build a bit better. But I've been diverted by this at the moment, so I haven't really got one.
Sure. Was that on ARCHER2 that you got it working before?
Yes, it was. Yeah. I wrote it up. I was asked one of our local researchers wanted some help with it, so I said I'd help. It's a thing called Daedalus.
Oh, okay.
It was a bit yucky actually trying to get it to work, and I felt quite unclean afterwards, thinking there must be a better way of doing it. But actually, there was just all the obvious things didn't really work, and I think it's just quite a difficult quite a yucky piece of code, and because it needed looking for MPI libraries in certain places, and there was some. I needed to hack the source code, otherwise I was getting missing symbols.
Right. So were you? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Just didn't feel right, but I couldn't find any easier way of doing it. But it did actually end up working, so that was something. But it didn't scale that well either, which was surprising.
Right. That's something that may help when we get map installed for people. Map can do Python profiling, which I'm not so sure that I don't believe CrapeHat can deal with Python. I'm not sure if Scholastica can. I'm not a Scholastica user myself. But certainly when we get map installed, you should be able to use that. If you think it's running too slowly, you should be able to use map to take a look at what's going on there.
I think we were seeing that the scaling across the node as remote processes, it scaled quite badly across a single node, but over multiple nodes it did scale really well.
Oh, okay, that's odd.
And we've got in our school we've got Epic CPUs as well, but we don't have the 7742s. We've got cheaper ones, and
right,
there was scaling not quite as well. But actually, on Archer, there was scaling a bit worse over single nodes. I was confused by that.
Are the NUMA regions set up the same? Do you know?
I think yes. I think we've got it set up the same way that each group of, well, we've got 7532, so they're in groups of 4. So there's sorry, groups of 8 cores make a NUMA region in our ones, because there's basically half the size, half the number of Archer nodes.
Because you can set it up for different numbers in the BIOS, and sometimes I think some sites do it differently, but I think generally everyone goes for what it sounds like we've both got here, because that's generally the best for performance.
Yeah, I wasn't seeing massive amounts of memory use either that would make that. I don't know. Anyway, and I've forgotten how it all works. I just thought this would be quite fun to do in the afternoons.
Sure, yeah.
At least verify that my recipe still works, which actually I don't think it does now. So I'm gonna have to change it.
I mean, just taking a quick look at the GitHub page that you linked. So I'm just looking at recipe 1. I mean, to me, it doesn't look too bad. I mean, you've got you've got the include paths and library paths for FFTW and MPI. They're going through the environment variables, and so. Although I see that you're having. Oh, yeah, I can see you're having to load stuff and unload stuff.
Well, I just unloaded it for cleanness. I maybe didn't really need to do it.
Okay. It wasn't interfering with it.
Yeah, I just thought, don't need them anymore, we'll get rid.
Sure.
But that's probably me being a little bit OCD about things. But yeah, it was just the reason for having to do that. There was all these little horrible things that I got stuck on. There's some technical points below it, trying to remind myself why I did those things that I did. I couldn't get to work using GCC, for example.
Oh, okay, that's slightly odd, actually. Okay, so chose to use quick compile for recipe 1. Haven't been able to. Okay, so what's the difference between recipe 1 and 2? Oh, so I see. So you use the virtual environment, and then you just did it as a.
Yeah, some people think virtual environments are too hard, so want to do everything at user level. So not keen on, but there you go. So I was kind of glad that one ended up harder, because it did make people use virtual environments, which was a good outcome. Yeah. I'm just reading this. I'm trying to remind myself what the things were. I'm glad I wrote this down, otherwise I'd forget everything.
And you were getting runtime problems.
Yeah.
Undefined symbol, MPI alt all V. Wow, if you were getting that as an undefined symbol. So that was.
Yeah, this is actually the first problem that we had. With one of the PhD students tried it and said, "This is what's happening. Can I help with it?" And I think this is how I got kind of involved in it. And I remember that now. That was the first problem that we'd had. So I had to hack the setup.py to explicitly put MPI as a dependency, and that seemed to make it work okay after that. But that's when things start to feel a bit unclean.
Yeah, I can see now what you mean. I can see now, yeah.
So I thought I'd just review this today and see if it still works. Because there has been an upstream change. They're changing from version 2 to version 3.
Right.
So it might be worth me trying to get version 3 working. So I don't think I got that far.
Did you try this just with the default CP software, just with the regular modules that log in, or did you change to CP 21.09 at all?
No, I didn't know about them at the time, so that was another thing I thought about trying. Maybe using a new one, see if it works.
I would definitely recommend giving it a go. It doesn't fix everything, but I'm just seeing myself little things here and there that seem to be tidied up a lot in CP 21.09.
Okay.
So I definitely recommend it. And also, I mean, this is now getting onto really anecdotal stuff, but I do think as well, I think performance is better in it. I don't have numbers at the moment to back it up. It's something I really want to look into, but I'm certain I'm seeing things running more quickly, but also more dependably. I don't know how big the jobs you run are, but sometimes if you go up to several hundred nodes, you sometimes find yourselves running into MPI errors just at the job launch with the default versions, and I'm nearly certain that those are being cleaned up when I use the CP 21.09 versions.
Okay, yeah, I'll give that a go. I did some benchmarking on single node performance, and I'll maybe repeat them when I've got to build again, just to see if anything's changed. There may be something, that the scaling within a single node might be better now, and maybe that's another reason to try the new CP thing and see if that improves things. And also the fix for FFTW3 that was in the known issues, give that a try as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind betting that if there are any little niggles that you came across with any of the Cray modules with the Cray libraries, I'd say there's a decent chance that they'll have been fixed in the newer ones. I mean, we're still hoping to get new versions out because they are fixing stuff all the time. The thing is, I mean, perhaps you already know this, sorry if you do, but a lot of the software for the Cray EX system was brand new, basically. And that did mean that at the beginning, there were loads of these, just random reissues everywhere. Every time you tried something new, something else would sort of break instead. But they've been doing, I think, a really good job at cleaning it up. So the first version, whatever it was we had on the 4cab, I can't remember, was something. Then now we've got 21.04 here. 21.09, I'm certain is better again, and there will still be newer versions. I think with the guys in management trying to work out, how to determine which newer versions we want to put on and how we want to deal with older versions dropping off and setting defaults, because we don't want to be surprising people because they log in and all of a sudden they're running a completely different version of everything. We want to keep things stable for people, but at the same time give them the good new stuff as well.
Yeah, because it may be worth my time actually just stripping the whole thing down again and trying to build it the easy way with 21.09, just see if that magically works.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend it, because I mean, as I say, it's anecdotal, but I'm rapidly becoming quite fond of 21.09.
Yeah.
It's just that wee bit more effort at the beginning, in particular remembering that that slightly cumbersome export LD library path command with cray LD library path, just to make sure that the non-default stuff is being added in correctly.
Yeah. Well, that's the fix for the FFTW issue as well, so I'll probably end up using that too, maybe.
Yeah,
there we are.
Oh,
yeah, that's yeah, because it's using the Haswell version rather than the AMD ROM by default. So this was a good excuse to have a look at this again, because I've been meaning to for a while.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's part of what this this afternoon session is meant to be.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I came along. It's always nice just to get a little bit of time where you can justify sitting doing something that's not really your day-to-day. Well, because I'm not working on this at the moment. I just like this to be still working so that it's current. And because that would be the PI hasn't. I haven't spoken to them about this for a while now, but I just like this to be working, because I know that probably a few other people will be interested in it. And if we can make it simpler, that would be nice as well. So, good excuse to have a look at it.
Yeah. So what does Daedalus do?
I don't know. It's I'm not really. I'm not a physicist. It's a PDE solver. It has a kind of almost like a sort of domain-specific language you can use to specify your PDEs, and it magically comes up with solvers for it. It's kind of like a way of writing PDE solving for people who aren't coders.
Right. Okay.
You write it kind of almost like LaTeX-y way, and then it sort of magically does stuff and comes up with a solver for you. It seems a little bit magic. I don't really understand it. But we have a few people in our school anyway who are using it, and they're involved in one of the consortium projects. But I'm not closely involved. I'm only get asked when it doesn't work.
Sure. That's the level of involvement I have with some software. It's get it working, don't ask what it does.
Pretty much, yeah.
I do a thing where I'm the contact for a lot of people on the HPC Europa 3 programs. So they come from all across Europe, and some of them have really wacky software they want to use, and it's stuff I've never heard of. It's just a matter of, okay, let's get it working on ARCHER2.
Yeah, that's
most of the time it does work.
Yeah, that's probably more of what I do. If someone comes along and says, "Can you make this? Can you compile this for me?" I'll try and work out the details on whatever system they're using. I usually don't know anything about the software or the system. It's just a case of randomly hitting at it with a hammer until it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So about the whole casts and sockets thing, I can only assume that something has changed the way that this works in the back end, and I kind of do want to find out what. The issue is, so I'm on the CSE team who do the sort of, helping people with the codes and building things side of things, and it's the systems team who look after Slurm, and I'm not sure what they did to which files, so I would need to check with them what's happened there, if anything. But this doesn't seem logical what it's doing. What I can say at least is that so this material was written by someone else, and I've just taken this over 2 runs ago. So I took over doing this course just before Christmas. So the way I would do it, and I think what I'm going to do for the next run, now that I know that this is not as it should be. If I'd had more time yesterday, we would have probably found this out then, but I was rushing a little bit. I think that what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to just use CPUs per task alone, because you can do most of the spreading of tasks with that. It just means that the output in XT high isn't quite as clean.
Yeah.
But if we do just, well, it's what I did before. It was just doing this. This is the standard way for doing underpopulation anyway. You would just change n tasks per node and CPUs per task.
I naively thought that maybe going with block cyclic would work for this block colon cyclic, because my reading is it fills up by socket. So if there's 2 tasks, then it'll put one on the first and the second on the second. That ended up putting it on core 0 and 16 as well. So
it seems like something's overriding it, doesn't it? So you just did this, just block cyclic, and
I thought that might work as well, but I can never understand how all these bits fit together, because some things, as you mentioned before, some things you can do at the S batch level, some things are at S run level, and then you can also do things kind of at the code level too.
Yeah,
it's all very confusing.
So when it works, it does work, and when it doesn't, it is confusing.
Yeah, I've ended up just randomly trying things until it works, and then I write it down and use that again. But I never feel like I'm doing things the right way when it comes to code binding. We've got a little Slurm cluster of our own, and locally, and I've had exactly the same problems trying to configure that none of these things work the way that I think they should, and I can never work out why that is. And we did an upgrade from 19 to 20.11, which is the same versus Archer, and things changed, and I had to work out what had changed with that one. So it does seem a bit brittle.
Yeah.
Maybe just don't understand. It's probably a mixture of the two things. But.
Let's see what we have here now. Still 16. I think there's something in there that is ignoring these options and overwrite, because it seems like nothing you've done, nothing I've done is changing it from putting the second rank on 16.
Yeah, I
think I almost want to raise this with other people here to make sure not missing something daft. But
that's what I was. It's probably me being. I was thinking it's probably me being daft. I'm glad that you're able to.
No, I don't think you are. I think you've been doing all the sensible sounding things. I think I've been doing them too, I hope. But nothing seems to be changing it. I'm going to try one last time to do the hint and the distribution at the S1 level. But really, that block cyclic should be doing it. Let's see. I'm going to try telling it nothing about CPUs per task or tasks per socket. I'm going to try and leave that completely up to S1. Okay, let's try that. Because I'm just looking back through, so we have an internal chat channel here, and when this work was being done back at the end of March, they were finding that jobs wouldn't run if the hint no multi-thread was being done at the S batch level. It would actually refuse to run the job, and you had to run it and you had to run it in the srun, which seems completely, completely nonsense. But for some reason, something in the configuration was causing that. It looks like they worked out what it was and fixed it. But as I say, it's the systems team for ARCHER2 who look after it. So exactly what was wrong and what they did to fix it, I'm not sure.
Yeah. I had great trouble trying to get hardware threading to work on our cluster, and I was just disabling it because no one was actually using it, and life just got easier.
Yeah, I mean, for 99% of people, that will be fine, won't it?
Yeah. And I kept finding weird things were happening that I wasn't expecting. And every time I thought I fixed something, something else then stopped working or didn't work the way I expected.
That's the way it works. Yeah, it's still doing it. Yeah, I think something's messed up in one of the configurations somewhere. So yeah, I think well, I think in the short term, that means then I need to change these solutions. So thanks for noticing this.
That's all right.
Thanks for checking it.
I don't know if the third part works or not. I just got stuck in the second one and go on to the next.
Well, let's find out. Why not? It's behind reservation. I'll go back to doing the hint and distribution at this match. Yeah, so yeah, I'm going to change that at least in the short term, but I want to chase this up because that's just weird. It should not be. It does look to me like it's just ignoring every option setting other than CPUs per task. Maybe, I wonder if they've done that somehow. I don't know if that is possible. Make sure that CPUs per task overrides everything else. And if it isn't specified, that it's falling back to some, I don't know, default, placing them on each NUMA region instead. Because that's what it's what it looks like it's doing. It's placing them around. It's placing them on each NUMA region sequentially rather than on each socket.
Yeah, yeah. That rings a bell, actually. There's maybe something in the config for that.
Okay, so let's take a look at this. I found apparently what they did at the end of March was they changed the default memory per node. Oh no, sorry, default memory per CPU.
Yeah.
And somehow, I mean, that just sounds to me like a bug, to be honest. Somehow that left them unable to use hint no multi-thread as an SBatch option. That caused it to come back saying that there were more processes requested than permitted.
Yeah.
Maybe it was trying to work out how many CPU cores it needed for some amount of memory, and it wasn't factoring in the hyperthreading or something.
Yeah, that reminds me, there was strange arithmetic going on that always caught me out when I was trying to do our configuration. Why I ended up turning it all off in the end. Yeah. There is a page that tries to tell you how all this fits together, but it's not very clear. Just long documentation.
So this looks like it's okay. I think this one's fine.
Groups of 4. Yeah.
Except, yeah, I was thinking something looks a bit weird, but that's because I've changed it to block cyclic. I'll just change it back to block. I get the feeling that n tasks per socket isn't needed either. Should I take a look at that? Yeah, I think that's. I think in tasks per socket we can forget about go to CPUs per task instead. I'm going to change this. I wonder if this is just from an older version of the setup, and it slipped through the cracks in terms of being updated.
Could well be, because it's not one of those things you're probably going to be checking all the time.
Yeah, something like I went through. I've made a lot of changes to the debugging and profiling sections. I think a lot of that was fairly out of date, so I wanted to improve that. But most of this I sort of looked through, and I guess a little too quickly. And yeah, because I wouldn't have defaulted myself to using n tasks per socket. I would have gone straight to CPUs per task and use that to space the tasks across the node.
Yeah,
I'm just surprised that it seems to be being ignored the way it is.
I don't think I've ever got that to work on our cluster either. Now I can think of trying to do things by socket. It never seems to have done the right thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, in any case, thanks very much for mentioning it, because that had completely slipped past me.
I'm glad it's not just me being completely dense.
Definitely not. I'm glad. I mean, I'm glad that because I might have found myself doing this at some point in the dead of night and found myself running in circles, wondering the same thing. So I'm glad it's not just me if I'd been in that spot.
Yeah, and I was also worried that maybe there was some other SBatch option that was hanging around that was getting in the way, but I was trying to break it down. I still couldn't get to work. I'm glad it is. Yeah, I think what you say about just getting rid of task per socket and going for CPUs per task is probably the way to do it.
Yeah, it just looks to me like something in the config is saying don't listen to n tasks per socket, or I mean, I wonder what would happen. Actually, there's one more thing I want to try because I'm interested in this now. I'm going to go back to task 2, just to. You don't really need 8 nodes, but I'm going to do it anyway. In tasks per node 2. I've just had an idea. If it's doing something weird, like no, that doesn't make sense. No, you can't. I'm wondering if it's doing something like treating sockets as NUMA regions rather than actual sockets.
Yeah.
Although it doesn't. I mean, if you check out the nodes through Slurm, it does always refer to the correct. It does always refer to there being 2 sockets on each node. I just wonder if something in the way it interprets n tasks per socket to be 16. Okay, I'm going to try let's see, I'm going to make 8 tasks per node. Oops, 8 tasks per node, and I'm going to set n tasks per socket equal to 1. And I just want to see if this then places them every 16 cores, because then that would mean that it is treating one socket as a NUMA node. Oh no, it doesn't like that. No, okay, so that isn't it either.
Yeah.
Okay, then I'm completely stumped.
That's fine. I'm glad. Well, I'm not glad that you're stumped. I'm glad that we're. I'm glad that it's not that obvious.
No, yeah, something is there. You possibly, from the sound of it, have a better grasp on Slurm configuration than I do. So you maybe have more insight here. But yeah, I want to try chasing this down with the people who actually write the configs. See if they have anything they can say about it.
Yeah.
Leaving that aside, though, as I say, yeah, my personal default here would be to go straight to CPUs per task. So that's how I'll carry on here in the future. But leaving that aside, how is the building of Daedalus going?
I'll have a go at that anyway. I think I'm probably going to make a couple now. I see Dale's back, so maybe let Dale have some of your time as well. So I'm not using all your.
Oh right. Oh yes.
Yeah. So I don't want to use up all your time. So I'll just disappear in the background for a while and look at the team and see them still building it.
Sure enough. Okay. Sure enough.
Great. Well, thanks for your help, William. It's been really useful. Thanks.
You're very welcome. Very welcome. Okay. Cheers.
See you later. Bye.
So hi there. If we're still running the session, I'm happy to carry on going as long as people want any help or input or anything. So if you have any questions or anything you'd like to see, just let me know. Okay, fantastic. So we'll keep on going. So there is a official, if you like, end time for the course of 4 p.m, but I'm happy to carry on up to 5 p.m. if either of you still want anything. So yeah, so there are the tasks here, or if you just want to, try stuff out on ARCHER2 and want anything, I'll be hanging about. So just throw something in the chat if you want anything, and I'll be able to help you out with it.